I don't know how adventurous this is going to be. So what you're going to want to do is take 2 eggs, just cracking the yolks into your dough bowl. The whites you'll want to put into a separate bowl off to the side. Pretty good sized bowl, I would say. Again, depending on how much you plan on making. But I would say that this type of bowl, cereal bowl of any kind, would be significant. It would be sufficient. So once you crack your eggs, which I don't have any, so crack, pretend, whites off to the side. You have your yolks in here. You are going to want to take your sour cream. You're going to want to measure 1 cup of sour cream. If you get a small container like this is usually right around a cup. Be careful if you do go over, because it can make your dough a little bit more sticky, and then it's a little bit harder to handle. So just FYI on that one. After you've added your sour cream to your egg yolk bowl, you're going to want to add 2 1/4 cups of flour. I will usually use one of these bigger measuring cups just because it holds 2 cups. And I would start with the sour cream in the big one, because once you put the flour in, you can scoop it all out, and that way you make sure you get it all into the bowl. If you don't have a 2 cup, obviously a 1 cup is sufficient, but you always want to start with your wet stuff first, then put your flour in, because then you can scoop it all out and dump it in there. So again, 2 1/4 cups of flour. After you've done that, you can slowly kind of start mixing it. You're going to want to take 1 stick of salted butter. I guess that's, sorry, it's backwards. You're going to want 4 tablespoons. So about half, like that. And you're going to want to put it in just a little cup of some sort, a little bowl, dish, whatever. And you're just going to want to get it really soft, almost melted. If you get it melted, it's not the end of the world. I usually just get it melted, but sometimes having it soft as opposed to melted can make the dough a little bit easier to work with. I don't care, I've been doing it long enough, I'll make it work. But for the beginner, the novice, you will just want to probably soften it. Once that's softened, you can then add that to the mixture of your egg yolk, your sour cream, and your flour. Put your butter in it, and that should really bring it all together. If you plan on doing 2 batches, you're just going to want to double everything. So 4 egg yolks, 2 cups of sour cream, 4 1/2 cups of flour, an entire stick of softened to melted butter. If you do decide to venture with the potatoes, you'll want to cook potatoes how you always do. You peel them, you rinse them, you chop them up, put them in boiling water until they're soft, drain them, rinse them. The trick is, though, you want them to be cool. So if it's cold outside, put them outside. Or if you have a basement, you can put them in the basement. Just make sure that they're covered, so on and so forth. The potatoes I usually start first, because depending on how many you make, it takes a lot longer. You want to stir them kind of frequently to flip them. You could even put them in another, pot or something like that if you have a bunch of them. I just usually leave it in the same one, and just stir it frequently. But with that being said, if you're only doing 1 batch of dough, you'll then have 4 tablespoons of your butter left, which that you'd want to saute onions in to add with the potatoes, to add with the farmer's cheese. But if you're just doing cheese, once you've mixed all your dough together, you're going to want to cover it with just a towel that you have in your kitchen, a clean one obviously, and put it to rest for at least 30 minutes in a warm place. If the sun is not out, or you don't have a window that you could put it by where the sun's kind of beaming in on it, again, there is no yeast, so it's not going to rise, but it will help to just kind of firm everything up together. If you find that your dough is a little bit sticky after a half hour, you can add a little bit more flour to it. Don't add too much though, because you're going to be adding more flour as you're working with the dough, and that makes it really hard to work with. So Once you cover it up, put it in a warm spot. Like I said, if the sun's not out, I would put it by a heat vent in your house if you got your heat on. If you don't have your heat on and the sun's not on, I don't know what to tell you. I would probably let it sit for a little bit longer then, maybe an hour, so that way it can work its magic. While that is resting, you can then focus your attention over to your cheese. So you already have a bowl set aside. You have a bowl set aside with your egg whites from your 2 egg yolks that you used in your dough. You are then going to want to add your farmer's cheese. Now, this is very little because I usually don't make a lot of cheese, but if you plan on making a lot of cheese, you may want to add more egg yolks, or I'm sorry, egg whites. Egg whites just helps to keep it all together so the cheese doesn't fall apart because it's very crumbly. It's just we use farmer's cheese. That's just that's the consistency of the cheese. With the cheese though, it has a very tart taste to it. So to sweeten it up, again, depending on how much cheese you use, you're going to want to add some sugar. For a small bowl like this that I would usually fill to the top, it would make maybe 7, 8 to 10 pierogis. I would do 3 to 4 tablespoons of sugar. That may seem like a lot, but trust me, in the end, it's worth it. Once you have that all mixed together and your dough is done rising, what you can do then is move to a very open table area or countertop space. You'll then want to take your flour and take a pinch and sprinkle it around on the area that you plan on working with. Obviously making sure that the area is clean before you start working with it. You'll definitely need a rolling pin, and you will need a pretty large size, either glass or cup. Traditionally, my grandmother had these very unique, almost wine-looking glasses, but they had a very wide rim. Alex broke one, but I believe there is still one floating around in the family. So the bigger the rim is, the better, because then you can just pack more filling into it. Obviously, if you have a very small, you're going to make very teeny tiny pierogi. So it depends on how big you want them, but for us, the bigger the better. Once you have sprinkled out your flour, you're going to want to grab just a little knuckle that would fit about in the palm of your hand size of dough. Make sure too that you have flour on your hands before you grab the dough. It will just be better all the way around. Then you'll want to put the dough onto your flat countertop with your flour sprinkled on it. Flip it over a couple times, let some of the flour from the countertop get onto it, grab your rolling pin, and then start rolling it out. Key thing though, don't roll it too thin. If you roll it too thin, when you go to fold them in half, unfortunately, you're probably going to have tears, and then you're going to have to do repairs and band-aids, and it's really, really messy when you then go to fry them. So you'll want to keep it a little bit thicker, but also keep in mind, if you go super thick, then you're not going to have probably enough dough to marry with your cheese mixture. So not too thick, not too thin. Sorry, I know that's not a great explanation, but you'll want it to, I would say, at least be about that thick. So that way, when you go to fold it in half, you can manipulate it a little bit, pull it a little bit if you need to, and it won't tear. So once you have the dough rolled out and you have, even a bowl would work, something like this, take it. You want to go from the outside, working your way in, getting as close to the next circle as you can. You don't want to waste any dough. Not that it's a waste, but you'll want to get as many circles out of the dough as you can. Once you've done all your circles, that's why it's important to have dusted your working area with flour too. You're going to want to either pull the circles up and put them off to the side, also floured area, unless you have people there that you can just start handing them to, or you can do it the other way and pull up the excess dough and make that into a ball and rework that out. Now, if you have a little teeny bit left, go grab another knuckle of your dough, combine it, start the process over. Once you are good with your dough, got your circles going, the people that are making the circles, what you're going to want to do is lay the dough flat in your hand. You're going to want to take a tablespoon of your cheese mixture, scoop it in, put it right in the middle. So what I do is almost make like a canoe. So it's like this when I put it in there. So I can form the cheese and then squish it over and pinch, 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 pinch. Now, if you find that you got one side pinched and the other side it's exploding out, just take your finger and stuff it back in there. Be mindful though that if you do that, make sure you're not pushing too hard so that it creates holes or tears in other parts of the dough. Yep, hold it like a taco kind of, and then pinch it all the way around. Another thing, make sure you pinch it really, really good. If it's not pinching or not sticking very good, get flour on your fingertips and pinch hard, 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 hard. And they doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be pleated little, just pinch it close so that when you go to put it in the frying pan, it doesn't explode. Trust me, it's a hot mess if you do. So once you have a couple of them made, you're going to want to set them to the side. Also kind of cover them with a clean towel, so that way the moisture kind of stays in and the dough doesn't dry out. If you have someone that's able to cook it as you're making it, then you can just kind of be bringing them over to the stove then. At the stove area, once you're ready to cook them, if you don't have someone doing it already for you, you're going to need a pot of boiling water. You're going to need a large bowl of cold water. Then you'll need a frying pan, which if you're not doing the potatoes, you could use your extra butter. I'll usually put a little drip of oil in there also, just because that helps to have them not stick, but the butter makes them taste a lot better. So once your water is boiling on the stove, what you're going to want to do is very gently drop them into the water. Once they rise up to the top, we have a very special slotted spoon that we use. And I apologize, I forgot to get ready. We use this kind of a spoon to then scoop it out of the water. You could use, I guess, any slotted spoon. This, I just like it because it's wider and it's not as deep. As you can see, it just has a little angle to it. So it just kind of keeps the consistency of the pierogi, and you're less likely to have accidents and have it cut in half or something like that. So once you get it out of the water, you're then going to want to take it over into the cold water and just kind of gently let it go. Just for a couple seconds, you just want to stop that cooking process from the water. Some people like it just boiled. To me, I need a little bit more than that. So from the boiling water, after it's been in there for a couple seconds, obviously if you leave it a little bit longer, it's not the end of the world, but I definitely would not leave it in there for longer than a minute, just because it starts to get like a gelatinous almost kind of skimmy, yuck. So you'll very gently want to scoop it out and then scoop it into your hot frying pan, which you already have kind of working with your butter and your little bit of oil. You just want to brown these because you boiled them first. Most of the dough is already going to be cooked, so it's just kind of finishing it off, just gently browning it. Flip it over. Depending on how high you have your heat, I would do medium,